Captain John Miller stood tall on the bridge of the U.S. Defiant. His blue uniform was clean and pressed. This was a big day. The Defiant was the first and only space warship humans had ever built that could travel between stars. Today, they would meet the Galactic Concorde for the first time. "Are you nervous, sir?" Lieutenant Susan Clark asked. She worked the ship's weapons systems. Miller took a deep breath. "A little, but we represent all of Earth today. We need to be strong." The Defiant was not very big compared to alien ships. It was shaped like an arrow, with engines at the back that glowed blue. The hull was dark gray with US Defiant painted in white on both sides. Earth had put all its best technology into this one ship. Through the main window, Miller could see the meeting place. It was a huge space station that looked like a wheel with 7 spokes. Each spoke belonged to one of the alien groups in the Galactic Concorde. "They're sending a message," said Daniel Harris, the communications officer. His fingers moved quickly over his screen. "They're giving us permission to dock at Bay 14. Miller nodded. "Take us in, nice and steady." The Defiant moved slowly toward the station. As they got closer, they could see other ships. These alien vessels were at least 5 times bigger than the Defiant. They had strange shapes and glowed with colors humans had never used in space. "Look at the size of them," whispered William Carter, the chief engineer. "Their technology must be amazing." The Defiant docked with a gentle bump. Miller turned to the small group of humans who would go with him to meet the aliens. "Remember," he said, "we are here to join the Galactic Concorde as equals. We stand proud." The group walked through the airlock and into the station. The inside was huge, with ceilings that seemed to reach up forever. Aliens of different shapes and colors moved around. Some had 4 arms, others had skin that changed color, and some floated instead of walking. A tall, thin alien with purple skin approached them. "I am Trell, assistant to Admiral Zex Toril of the Vesperan Empire. Follow me." They walked through long hallways until they reached a large room with a round table. 6 aliens sat at the table, each one very different from the others. The empty seat was clearly for humans. Miller and his team sat down. He placed a small Earth flag on the table. "The human delegation is recognized," said a large alien with scales and 4 eyes. "I am Supreme Counselor Drav. We will now hear your petition to join the Galactic Concorde." Miller stood up and began the speech he had practiced for weeks. He talked about Earth's history, its cultures, and what humans could offer to the galaxy. While he spoke, he noticed the aliens whispering to each other. Some were clearly trying not to laugh. When he finished, Admiral Zex Toril spoke up. He was tall with blue skin and eyes that glowed yellow. "We have seen your ship," he said with a voice that sounded like metal scraping. "It is primitive, barely worth noticing. Do you really think you belong among us?" Lisa Rodriguez, the diplomatic officer, touched Miller's arm as a signal to stay calm. "Our technology may be different," Miller said carefully, "but humans are quick learners." Zex Toril laughed out loud now. "Your weapons are like toys to us. Your engines are slow. You have only one ship. One small, weak ship." The other aliens joined in the laughter. Drav raised a hand for quiet. "We have decided. Earth may join as an observer only. Not a full member. Your species is too far behind us." Miller felt his face grow hot with anger, but he kept his voice steady. "We accept observer status for now, but we will prove our worth." As they walked back to the Defiant, Susan Clark whispered, "They treated us like children." Miller nodded. "Yes, but they don't know humans very well. And one day, they'll regret that." 2 weeks after the meeting with the Galactic Concorde, Captain Miller sat in his office on the U.S. Defiant. He was reading reports when Lieutenant Susan Clark knocked on his door. "Captain, you need to see this," she said. Her face was serious. Miller followed her to the bridge. The main screen showed a star map with several red dots moving slowly toward a blue dot. "What am I looking at?" Miller asked. The blue dot is Earth, Clark said. The red dots are ships, alien ships. They're moving toward us. Daniel Harris turned from his communication station. I've been listening to alien chatter. These ships belong to the Xorians. They're known for attacking less advanced worlds. Miller frowned. Why haven't the Concord told us about this? I think they know, Clark said. Look at this. She showed Miller a data file she had found in the Concord's public records. It showed that aliens had been watching Earth for over 50 years without making contact. They classified humans as too aggressive and unpredictable to join their group, Clark explained. They've been keeping us in the dark. Miller's face grew hard. Set course back to the Concorde station. Now, 3 days later, Miller stood before the Alien Council again. This time he didn't try to hide his anger. You knew the Xorians were coming to attack Earth, and you said nothing, he said. Admiral Zex Toril shrugged his blue shoulders. The Xorians attack primitive worlds. That is what they do. It is not our concern. Not your concern. Miller's voice rose. Earth is home to billions of people. Your species is not a full member of the Concorde, said Counselor Draff. We are not required to protect you. Will you help us? Miller asked directly. The aliens looked at each other. Some seemed uncomfortable, but none spoke up. Admiral Zex Toril finally laughed. What do you expect us to do? Send our fleet to save one primitive planet. The Xorians have 30 warships. You have one. He waved a hand dismissively. Hide your little ship and pray the Xorians are feeling merciful. On the way back to the Defiant, Lisa Rodriguez pulled Miller aside. Not all of them agree with Zex Toril, she whispered. I spoke with some lower-ranking officials. They say the Concorde races have grown lazy. They rely too much on their advanced technology. And the Xorians have never faced a real fight. They only attack worlds that can't defend themselves. Back on the ship, Miller called a meeting with his senior officers. How long until the Xorians reach Earth? He asked. 3 weeks at their current speed. Harris answered. We can't build more ships in 3 weeks, said William Carter, the chief engineer. But I have an idea. There's a scientist on Earth, Dr. Alan Green. He's been working on some wild theories about weapons that use different physics than what aliens use. Get him up here, Miller ordered, and contact Earth. Tell them what's coming. Over the next few days, governments on Earth argued and panicked, but finally they agreed to work together. The Defiant was Earth's only hope. Dr. Green arrived with crates of equipment and plans for new weapons. Aliens think they know everything about space warfare, he said with a grin. But they've overlooked some basic principles. Their shields can stop energy weapons, but what about weapons that affect gravity itself? Miller didn't understand the science, but he understood hope when he saw it. How fast can we add these to our ship? He asked Carter. With enough people working around the clock. Just barely in time, Carter replied. Miller nodded. Then let's get to work. The Xorians think they're hunting easy prey. Let's show them that humans bite back. Meanwhile, in deep space, 30 Xorian warships continued their steady approach to Earth. Their commanders were already discussing how they would divide up the planet after its quick surrender. The U.S. Defiant looked different now. Workers had added strange devices to its hull. Inside, the ship buzzed with activity as crew members installed Dr. Green's new technology. Will it work? Captain Miller asked, watching Dr. Green and Chief Engineer Carter connect wires to a large metal ring in the weapons bay. In theory, yes, Dr. Green said. He was a thin man with wild gray hair. This gravity pulse torpedo creates a small area where gravity suddenly becomes very strong, then very weak. No alien shield is designed to stop that. Carter wiped sweat from his forehead. The power systems are holding so far, but we've never tested anything like this in real battle. Miller nodded. We don't have time for tests. The Xorians will be here in 5 days. On the bridge, Lieutenant Clark studied Xorian battle tactics on her screen. They always attack in the same pattern, she told Miller later. They've never needed to change because no one has ever beaten them. That gives us an advantage, Miller said. They won't expect anything new. Meanwhile, Lisa Rodriguez spent her time talking with aliens, not the leaders of the Concord, but lower-ranking members who secretly supported Earth. One of them, a small green alien named Creel, sent her valuable information. The Xorians have a weakness, she told Miller, showing him the data Creel had sent. Their ships are connected through their main flagship. If we can take out their command ships, the rest will have trouble fighting together. Daniel Harris had good news too. I've cracked their communication codes, he said. We can listen to everything they say to each other. They still don't think we're a real threat. Miller called everyone together for a final meeting. Here's the plan, he said, pointing to a map of the solar system. We'll hide behind Jupiter's moon Callisto. When the Xorians come past, we'll surprise them. Dr. Green's weapons should work against their first ships. Then we'll use Jupiter's gravity to slingshot around and hit them from behind. That's risky, Clark said. If the weapons don't work, we'll be destroyed in seconds. If we do nothing, Earth is lost anyway, Miller replied. This is our only chance. The day before the Xorians were due to arrive, Miller gave his crew some free time. They gathered in the ship's dining hall for what might be their last meal together. Why did you join Earth's space program? Miller asked as they ate. One by one, they shared their stories. Carter had dreamed of space since he was a boy. Clark wanted to protect people. Harris loved solving puzzles. Rodriguez believed in bringing different cultures together. I joined because I believe humans have something special, Miller said. We don't give up. Even when things look impossible, we keep trying. That's what the aliens don't understand about us. Later that night, as Miller tried to sleep, a message came in. Some alien ships had arrived near Saturn, but they weren't Xorians. They were ships from the Galactic Concord. We're getting a transmission, Harris called. Admiral Zextoral's face appeared on the screen. Captain Miller, we have come to watch the Xorian victory. For historical records, you understand. Miller's face grew hot with anger. You came to watch us die. We came to observe, Zextoral said. The Xorians have 30 battleships. You have one small vessel. The outcome is certain. We'll see about that, Miller said, defiant out. He shut off the transmission and turned to his crew. They think this is a show. They think the ending is already written. He smiled grimly. Let's prove them wrong. The Defiant powered down all non-essential systems and hid in the shadow of Callisto. All they could do now was wait for the enemy to arrive. The bridge of the U.S. Defiant was dark and quiet. Only small emergency lights glowed at each station. The crew spoke in whispers as they waited. They're here, Daniel Harris said softly. His screen showed 30 large dots entering the solar system. The Xorian fleet had arrived. Captain Miller leaned forward in his chair. Keep all systems at minimum power. We don't want them to spot us. From their hiding place behind Callisto, they watched as the alien ships moved toward Earth. The Xorians traveled in a tight formation, their ships shaped like giant arrowheads with glowing red edges. Concord observation vessels are keeping their distance, Lieutenant Clark reported. They're staying near Saturn to watch. Miller nodded. Good. I don't want any accidental hits on them, no matter how annoying they are. Harris listened to the Xorian communications through his earpiece. Sir, they're talking about how easy this will be. They're already making plans for who gets what parts of Earth. Miller's jaw tightened. They're in for a surprise. The main Xorian fleet split into 3 groups. The largest group, with the command ships, headed straight for Earth. The other 2 groups moved to circle the planet from different sides. Perfect, Miller said. They're following standard attack formation, just like you said, Lieutenant. Time to move would be in about 12 minutes, sir, Clark advised. That will put us in the right position behind the main group. Miller gave the order. Prepare for engine start. Weapons team, ready those gravity torpedoes. Dr. Green, is your system ready? Dr. Green looked up from his station. As ready as it will ever be, Captain. But remember, we've never fired these in actual combat. The effects could be unpredictable. Noted, Miller said. We'll aim for the back ships first. If something goes wrong, at least the whole fleet won't immediately turn on us. The minutes ticked by slowly. Every person on the bridge felt their heart beating fast. Earth's future depended on what would happen in the next hour. 2 minutes to optimal position, Clark said. Miller stood up. This is it, everyone. Our one chance to show the galaxy what humans can do. He pressed a button to speak to the whole ship. All hands, battle stations. We are about to engage the enemy. Remember your training. Remember what we're fighting for. He paused, then added, no matter what happens today, I'm proud of each one of you. Now let's go save our home. The crew replied with a cheer that echoed through the ship. Power up all systems, Miller ordered. Full engine thrust on my mark. The lights came on. Screens lit up. The Defiant hummed as its engines prepared to fire. Sir, Harris said suddenly, I'm picking up a transmission from the Xorian command ship to Earth. They're demanding immediate surrender. Are they getting any response? Miller asked. Yes, Earth is telling them to. Well, the language is colorful, sir, but basically Earth is telling them to go away. Harris grinned. Miller laughed. Sounds about right. Let's give our planet a hand. He raised his voice. Engine room, full power now. The Defiant shot out from behind Callisto like a bullet. It raced toward the back of the Xorian fleet, which still hadn't noticed the small human ship. Weapons range in 30 seconds, Clark reported. On the Concord observation ships, Admiral Zex Toril was watching the Xorian fleet with boredom when an aide rushed up to him. Admiral, the human ship. It's moving to attack the Xorians. Zex Toril turned in surprise. What? That's suicide. He moved quickly to the viewing screen. Get me a better view of this. Those foolish humans are about to learn a harsh lesson. Back on the Defiant, Miller gave the order everyone had been waiting for. Target the last 2 ships in the formation. Fire gravity torpedoes. Now, 2 bright blue streaks shot out from the Defiant. The gravity torpedoes moved faster than any normal weapon. They hit the back of the Xorian formation before the aliens knew what was happening. When the torpedoes exploded, they didn't make fire or loud sounds. Instead, space itself seemed to bend around the 2 Xorian ships. For a second, the ships were stretched like rubber. Then they crushed inward like cans being stepped on. In less than 10 seconds, both ships were torn apart. Direct hits. Lieutenant Clark shouted. Both targets destroyed. The bridge crew cheered, but Captain Miller stayed focused. No time to celebrate. Hard turn to port. Use Jupiter's gravity to slingshot us around. The Defiant banked sharply and raced toward Jupiter. The giant planet's gravity pulled on the small ship, making it go faster and faster as it curved around the gas giant. On the main Xorian ship, the commander was in shock. What happened to our rear ships? He demanded. Unknown weapon, Commander, an officer replied. A small vessel attacked from behind. Our sensors show it's the human ship. Impossible, the commander shouted. How could one primitive ship destroy 2 of ours? Find it. Destroy it. But the Defiant was now using Jupiter to hide. The human ship came around the far side of the planet at incredible speed, now heading straight for the middle of the Xorian fleet. They're confused, Harris reported, listening to the Xorian communications. They're all talking at once, trying to figure out what happened. Perfect, Miller said. Target their middle ships this time. Fire when ready. 4 more gravity torpedoes launched. This time, the Xorians saw them coming. 2 ships managed to move out of the way, but 2 others were hit. One ship was crushed like the first 2. The other was only damage, spinning out of control. They're responding, Clark warned. 20 ships are changing course to attack us. Evasive maneuvers, Miller ordered. Head for the asteroid belt. We'll use the rocks for cover. The Defiant raced away with Xorian ships following. Energy beams shot past the human ship, some missing by just a few feet. One hit and we're done, Carter warned from engineering. Our shields won't stop their weapons. Then we don't get hit, Miller said calmly. Harris, what are the Concorde observers doing? Harris checked his screen. They're moving closer, sir. I think they want to see better. I bet they do, Miller said with a tight smile. The Defiant reached the asteroid belt and dived in among the floating rocks. The ship twisted and turned, narrowly avoiding both asteroids and Saurian weapons fire. Sir, I'm receiving a transmission from Admiral Zex Toril, Harris said. Put him on, Miller replied. The Admiral's blue face appeared on screen. His yellow eyes were wide with shock. Captain Miller, what weapons are you using? How did you destroy those ships? Sorry, Admiral, Miller said it as the Defiant made another sharp turn. Too busy to chat right now. He cut the connection. On the Concorde ship, Zex Toril turned to his officers. Did you see that? The human ship just destroyed 4 Xorian vessels. 4, with some kind of weapon we've never seen before. Back on the Defiant, Miller was planning his next move. We can't keep running forever. We need to hit them harder. Dr. Green, can we increase the power on the torpedoes? Yes, but it will drain our engines, Dr. Green replied. We'll be slower. Worth the risk, Miller decided. Lieutenant Clark, I want a new attack plan. Let's hit their command ships. Clark looked unsure. Sir, there are 15 ships guarding their commanders. I know, Miller said. But if we take out their leadership, the rest will fall apart. That's our best chance. He looked at his crew. We've surprised them once. Let's do it again. The Defiant suddenly turned and shot out of the asteroid belt, heading straight for the heart of the Xorian fleet. Ahead lay their biggest challenge yet. The Defiant flew straight toward the center of the Xorian fleet. The enemy ships fired again and again, filling space with deadly energy beams. Evasive pattern Delta, Captain Miller ordered. The ship zigzagged, narrowly avoiding the attacks. A blast grazed the left side of the Defiant. The ship shook hard. Warning lights flashed on the bridge. Damage to decks 3 and 4, Carter reported from engineering. Shields down to 40%. Miller gripped his chair as the ship shook again. Keep going. We need to get closer to their command ships. In the center of the Xorian fleet were 3 larger vessels. These ships controlled all the others. If they could be destroyed, the rest of the fleet would be confused and weak. Sir, look. Clark pointed to her screen. 2 Xorian ships had crashed into each other while trying to chase the Defiant. They're not used to fighting an enemy that moves like we do. Miller nodded. They've only attacked helpless planets before. They don't know how to fight a real battle. The Defiant spun and dived, moving in ways the bigger Xorian ships couldn't copy. Every time they fired, the human ship was already somewhere else. On the Concorde observation ship, Admiral Zex Toril watched with growing shock. How are they doing this? 1 ship against 30 should be impossible. A science officer next to him studied her readings. The human ship is using the solar system itself as a weapon, Admiral. They're using gravity, space debris, even solar radiation to their advantage. They're fighting in 3 dimensions. The Xorians always fight in straight lines. Zex Toril stared at the screen. We may have underestimated these humans. Back on the Defiant, Miller saw his chance. There's a gap between those 2 destroyer ships, full speed ahead. The human ship shot through the opening, taking fire from both sides. The hull screamed as metal heated and bent, but they made it through. Now they were inside the Xorian defense ring. The 3 command ships loomed ahead, each one 5 times the size of the Defiant. They're trying to escape, Harris said, listening to Xorian communications. The commanders are scared. Miller allowed himself a small smile. They should be. Target the lead command ship. Maximum power to the gravity torpedoes. Sir, Dr. Green warned. At maximum power, the torpedoes might affect us too if we're too close. We'll deal with that problem when we get there, Miller said. Fire. The torpedoes shot forward, glowing brighter than before. They hit the first command ship dead center. Space warped around the massive vessel. Metal twisted and bent. The ship broke in half, then quarters, then smaller pieces. But the gravity wave didn't stop there. It spread outward, catching two nearby Xorian ships. They too were crushed by the invisible force. The wave reached the Defiant. The ship rocked violently. Crew members held onto their stations as gravity inside the ship went crazy. For a few seconds, everything floated. Then everyone was pushed down hard into their seats. Engine power failing, Carter shouted over the noise. The wave damaged our systems. The Defiant drifted, powerless, right in the middle of the enemy fleet. The remaining two command ships turned their weapons toward the helpless human vessel. This is it, Miller thought. But he kept his face calm for his crew. Redirect all emergency power to shields. Then something unexpected happened. The Xorian ships stopped firing. They started moving in strange patterns, bumping into each other. Sir, Harris said in surprise, they can't coordinate their attacks anymore. When we destroyed that command ship, we broke their network. Each ship is trying to fight on its own, and they're getting in each other's way. Miller saw his opportunity. Do we have any power for weapons? One torpedo left, Clark reported, and it would use our last power. After that, we'd be completely dead in space. Miller took a deep breath. It was time for one final gamble. Target the second command ship. Put everything we have into that last torpedo. He looked at his brave crew. Let's finish this. The last torpedo was loaded. The Defiant floated in space, most of its systems offline. Through the main window, the crew could see Xorian ships moving in confusion. This is our only chance, Miller said. We need to get closer to the second command ship. We have just enough emergency power for thrusters, Carter reported from engineering. Maybe one short push. Miller looked at the ship's map. The second Xorian command ship was half a mile away. Too far for a good shot. Dr. Green, Miller asked, what if we changed the torpedo settings? Could we make it seek out the command ship's engines? Dr. Green thought for a moment. Yes, but that would make the torpedo less powerful. We don't need power, Miller said. We need accuracy. He turned to Clark. Program the torpedo to hit their main engine area. That's their weak point. While Clark worked on the torpedo settings, Harris listened to the Xorian communications. They're trying to regroup, he reported. We have maybe 5 minutes before they organize a new attack. Lisa Rodriguez spoke up. Sir, the Concorde ships are moving closer. I'm getting messages from some of them. They're cheering for us. Miller raised an eyebrow. Are they now? Let's give them something to really cheer about. Thrusters ready. Carter nodded. Ready, sir. One push is all we've got. Fire thrusters, Miller ordered. Aim us directly at that command ship. The Defiant lurched forward, moving slowly toward the massive Xorian vessel. The distance closed. Half a mile, quarter mile, 1,000 feet. Torpedo ready, Clark reported. Fire, Miller said quietly. The last torpedo shot out from the Defiant. It moved straight toward the second command ship, then curved slightly to aim at the engine section. The Xorians saw it coming and tried to move their ship, but it was too big to turn quickly. The torpedo hit exactly where Miller had aimed. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then a small explosion appeared at the hit point. It grew larger, spreading across the back of the ship. The Xorian engines glowed bright red, then white. They're having a reactor overload, Dr. Green said, watching his screen. Their power core is going tow. He didn't finish his sentence. The Xorian command ship exploded in a huge ball of light. The blast wave hit the Defiant, pushing it backward through space. "Hold on," Miller shouted as the ship tumbled. When they steadied themselves, they looked out to see an amazing sight. The explosion had taken out the second command ship and 3 nearby Xorian vessels. The remaining ships were scattered and damaged. "The third command ship is running away," Harris reported with a grin. "They're ordering a full retreat." The bridge crew cheered. Miller allowed himself to smile. "Damage report." "We're alive, but that's about it," Carter replied. "No weapons, no engines, life support running on backup power. We're dead in the water, Captain." Miller nodded. "Send out a distress signal. Let Earth know we won, but we need a tow home." Before they could send the message, a new ship appeared near the Defiant. It wasn't Xorian. It was from the Galactic Concord. "We're being hailed," Harris said in surprise. Admiral Zex Toral's face appeared on the screen. For once, he wasn't smiling or looking smug. He looked shocked and maybe a little impressed. "Captain Miller," he said, "your ship requires assistance. We are prepared to offer towing services back to your planet." Miller raised an eyebrow. "That's very kind of you, Admiral. What changed your mind about helping us?" Zex Toral seemed uncomfortable. "The Concord Council is reconsidering Earth's status. What you've done here today is unprecedented. One ship defeating most of a Xorian battle fleet." He paused. "Perhaps we have been hasty in our judgment of humans." Miller shared a look with his crew. It was a small victory on top of their bigger one. "We accept your assistance, Admiral," Miller said, "and we look forward to those new discussions." As the Concord ship moved in to tow the Defiant, Miller looked at his tired but proud crew. "Well done, everyone. Well done." 2 weeks after the battle, the U.S. Defiant floated in space near the Galactic Concord station. The ship looked different now. Its hull was patched in many places. Some parts were still black from weapons fire, but it was whole again, and its engines worked. Inside the big meeting room on the station, Captain Miller sat at the table with aliens from the 7 Concord races. This time, no one was laughing at him. "Captain John Miller," said Counselor Drav, "the Galactic Concord has called this special meeting to discuss Earth's place among us." Miller nodded but said nothing. He knew when to listen. Admiral Zex Toral spoke next. "What your single ship did against the Xorian fleet was impressive. We have never seen anything like it." The Blue Admiral seemed to have trouble saying these words. "The Xorians have troubled our space for many years. Yet you defeated them with one ship and clever thinking." "Not just me," Miller said. "My crew, Dr. Green's science, and Earth's determination. We all did it together." "Yes," said a green alien with 4 arms. "And that is why we wish to offer Earth full membership in the Galactic Concord, effective immediately." The room went quiet. All eyes turned to Miller. They expected him to be happy and grateful. Instead, he looked thoughtful. "That's a generous offer," Miller said carefully. "But I have a different idea." The aliens looked surprised. Zex Toral frowned. "You would reject membership after asking for it before." "Not reject," Miller explained. "Rethink. The current Concord isn't fair to newer species. You put them at the bottom. You look down on them. That's not a real partnership." Miller stood up and walked to the center of the room. "Earth will join the Concord, but as an equal founding member of a new version. One where all species are treated with respect, no matter their technology level." "Impossible," one alien shouted. "You can't make demands of us." "We're not making demands," Miller said calmly. "We're offering a choice. Earth joins as an equal partner, or we go our own way. And take our gravity torpedo technology with us." At the mention of the gravity torpedoes, the room went silent again. Every alien race wanted that technology now. Counselor Drav spoke after a long moment. "What exactly are you proposing, Captain Miller?" "A new charter," Miller said. "One that values each species for their unique strengths. The Vestrans have better space drive technology. The Peluri understand medicine better than anyone. Humans might not have the most advanced ships, but we understand adaptation and creative thinking. He looked around the room. Together, as true equals, we'd be stronger than any of us alone. The aliens talked among themselves for a long time. Finally, Counselor Draft nodded. We will consider your proposal, Captain. It has merit. 3 days later, Miller stood on the bridge of the Defiant as it prepared to return to Earth. Lieutenant Clark handed him a datapad. The new charter, sir. They've agreed to most of our terms. Miller smiled as he read it. The United Galactic Alliance. A fresh start. Earth is sending good news too, Harris said from his station. They've started building 10 more ships like the Defiant. The first one will be ready in 6 months. As the Defiant pulled away from the station, Miller saw something surprising. Alien engineers were working alongside humans on the station's outer hull. They were installing what looked like a gravity torpedo system. Is that what I think it is? Miller asked. Lisa Rodriguez nodded. The beginning of technology sharing. They're learning from us, and we're learning from them. Miller watched as Earth grew larger in the view screen. Soon, the Defiant would be home. They would be welcomed as heroes. But Miller was already thinking about the future. We have a lot of work to do, he said to his crew. Building ships is the easy part. Building trust between different worlds will be the real challenge. Clark smiled. If anyone can do it, humans can. We've already done the impossible once. Miller nodded. Yes, we have. And we're just getting started. As the Defiant approached Earth, ships from around the world came out to escort it home. The ship that had saved humanity flew proudly among them, small but mighty, forever changing humanity's place in the stars.